Alright guys, so today on top Morning guys, so in today's installment of Duct Tape Drags Prep, we got the aluminum seat in, so that's done. Now we are going to install the Driveshaft safety loop. Reason for that is that once you're running slicks on the rear, you then have to have a Driveshaft safety loop. And with the slicks, the other rule is that, or the other safety rule, is that you also have to have bolted in valve stems, both of which I have, and I know for sure I have more than enough thread engagement on the lug nuts. If you ever want to Google this stuff, NHRA has like a quick sheet by ET and mile per hour that pops up on Google pretty quick. And also, if you ever just go to the track, just ask an official. They're usually more than happy to help you and let you know what you have going on, and if you fail tech, they're usually more than willing to tell you how to get past it. You know, I've yet to have any issues, luckily, but I also know a guy that I ask questions to pretty frequently, and I ask Robbie 20 questions every 2 weeks just because he's gone much quicker than I have so far, so he has much more stringent safety requirements. So definitely ask questions, and you know, common sense, don't show up to the track, you know, with 3 threads on an acorn lug nut and expect to get past tech. That's just not going to happen. The way I usually check it is if I think it's going to be close. If the stud goes through long enough into the nut on a wheel, for example, that should be enough thread engagement. I think it's supposed to be the same amount of thread engagement as the diameter of the stud. So a 7/16 20 for Chevy should have at least 7/16 of an inch of engagement of thread through the nut itself. So that's why I run the super long studs in the rear. And then on the front, I've checked it, and I have about a thread or thread and a half going through the nut itself. So I know that it's more than enough engagement to be legal, or at least past tech. Say all that to say this. Today we're putting in the Driveshaft safety loop. This is just a bolt together piece from Speedway Motors. These 2 pieces in particular would be the loop, some hardware, and these are the 2 brackets that would bolt to the floor. If I'm not mistaken, it's meant to go something like this here. There and there, something like that. Anyway, we will go through, get under the car. I already have it jacked up on some blocks of wood, and I have the rear chalked off, and I have the thing in park with the jack underneath it. You know, got to make it to the race before you can actually race, so always make sure you're jacking things up relatively safely at least. So after a quick assessment of looking at it, figured out that these legs are a little bit too long. Other than that though, it seems like it should work relatively smoothly. I was able to sort of jam it in place, and the loop fell kind of right where I needed it to be anyway, so once I shorten this up on both sides, it should be able to straighten it and put it right in. Just gotta basically shorten down to, I don't know if you guys can see it, these 2 bolt holes, these 2 first bolt holes right here. Customized sharp edges. So far, this is one of my favorite paints. I don't really paint anything that I like to see with it, but as far as painting stuff that I'm gonna bolt on, this is probably my favorite. It is actually what I painted the panel on the back of my car. That's where the filler cap used to be, where I put the kill switch. That's what I painted. I painted it with this, and it's great. Honestly, it lays out super easy. I'm not the best painter in the world, so this is really good for that. They give you multiple holes to put the hoop on. So you can just bolt the bracket on these two holes, whatever height prefers. Technically, you could even use it all the way up to this third hole and then just leave the two for the top. And then you can even flip this bracket. Let's say if your floor and tunnel are really offset, and you can flip this in so that this is at the bottom, and then your loop can still go over your drive shaft. So they give you a lot of adjustability and options with this guy, and I mean, for what it costs, it's pretty good. This is actually a Speedway Motors drive shaft safety loop, and it works pretty well, I would say. I mean, considering it's just gonna catch the drive shaft in case it fails, and it comes with some grade 5 hardware. So that 2 of those at least, plus the 2 or 4 through the floor, that should be more than enough to keep that all contained. So it's a pretty nice piece for what it is. This is my U-joint. Lucky for me, it landed in a place that's pretty easy to see. Allegedly, they want you from the center of the U-joint. You can only go up to 6 inches back. So I'd call that probably somewhere about right there. And lucky for me, this guy happens to fall right in there. And this will also help support my fuel lines, which is nice. The only thing I really got to figure out right now is what my upper loop situation is going to look like. And then I'm just going to start poking holes. Let's try not to hit ourselves in the face with that. Alright, so I have flipped the brackets now. So, as you can see here, get this frame for you. All the adjustment holes are going upwards now. And from here, all you gotta do is put the loop in on the top half. Probably set that to the highest height that it can go. This thing shouldn't move much more than where it's already at currently. Move you guys out of the way a little bit. Put you on the triangle cross member. Alright, so that there is too high. Alright, that is good to know. I had to try this a few times because I couldn't really get it to clear the top loop, but I think I was just in my own head for it for the most part. So now we're on to the drilling through the floor section of this. So right now I have it set up where the top half of the loop is installed, as you can see there. And then I've got the outriggers or the straps right here. Just gonna push this up to the floor, see where I think it's happy, and then drill it in. Looks like the box only comes with 2 bolts per side, which is fine. Should probably be more than enough. And then I'll throw the hardware in through from the top, and this thing seems to hold itself in place relatively well, so should be a one-man operation, but we'll see how that goes. Start drilling holes. Okay. Alright, so up to this point, I had to take this guy back out again. As you can see, I had to cut the top 2 holes off the bracket to get some more space to center the loop around the drive shaft itself. And I think that should be the final modification, if I'm not mistaken. So let's get this thing up there. Here comes the fun part. Ow. Okay. Alright, I see the mistake. Gotta go the other way, bud. There we go, that's looking more like something. Okay. All right, now we're getting somewhere. All right, went nowhere. Alright, the safety loop is now in. Admittedly, that did take more than a few tries. Hell, it took more than a lot of tries. Shouldn't have taken that many. Had to trim it twice. That's expected. It's a universal part. Not going to fit every car. Had to fiddle with the hardware, mainly because you gotta set up the top half of the loop, or at least that's what I figured out. Set up the top half of the loop with the two legs, and then you can attach your bottom bracket. Or inversely, you can try and set up the legs with the bracket on the bottom, but for some reason, the way the pieces are bent, once you tighten up any of the bolts or even get them started, it immediately wants to get too narrow or too wide for the second half of that shell to go in. So I spent probably at least half an hour under the car, if not more, trying to figure out how to get it all to piece together. But once I did, I was able to tighten up the loop itself, and then I had to center it in the slip yoke area, because there is a part that bulges. It's probably about 1.5 or 2 inches away from the center of the U-joint, maybe 3. But it's still on part of the yoke where it's thicker. So I had to center it perfectly so that as the yoke is rotating, it doesn't hit where it gets fatter. So that seemed to work out perfectly. Now, if I move the car, there's no point where it hits. Otherwise, the car would want to stop because it would stop the drive shaft. So, seems to have worked just fine. Now, that should be the last of it. That should be the last of the prep for duct tape drags. What I do need to do now is I need to go in and repin the weather pack for the trans brake. I'm not going to make a whole video about that just because it's not that interesting and I've already done it once. I need to repin it because for some reason the connector, one of the pins decided to bend really badly, so now it doesn't want to mesh with the connector on the male side. Well, I'm going to go in, repin it, put the housing back on, and basically closer we get to duct tape drags, I'm going to be doing more and more nut and bolt checks, basically starting from the rear forward, just nut and bolting everything, because we're slated to go a lot faster now, at least ET wise. I don't know about mile per hour wise, but between the slicks and the trans brake, that should really knock off a bunch of time off the 60 foot and really knock off the first half. And then from there, we should be able to top end more, because admittedly I was shifting into third and I wasn't really using all the RPM all the way through the trap, so there was some more meat there. So now we should be primed and ready to go pretty quick, along with the fact that we have a taller tire, therefore making the gear ratio less aggressive technically because it's a taller tire. So should be pretty good. Duct tape drags is about a month away. No, we're September or something. Duct tape drags isn't too far, about a month out now. Hopefully go some rounds. I would like to this time. Last year I went. This was before I even had the channel going, and I went on the 215s, and that track, man, once a few cars have gone down and they tested for the day, that track is pretty much junk. It's not the track's fault, it's just the cars, man. You get a bunch of junk cars out there that are oiling the track, dumping dirt at the starting line. Cars that have, probably not been tested. A lot of them that are just dumping dirt everywhere. So it's a good way to test, kind of a no prep style, but prep surface, and see how well you can get down a junk surface. Honestly, it's bad. On the 215s, my first pass that I tried to go, man, I tried to get aggressive with it, and I was almost fully horizontal with the track, or not, I was perpendicular to the track. It was bad. So that was the first time I've ever had it where I was looking at one of the walls and I was freaked out a little bit. Second try, I just calmed it down, but it was still spinning really bad off the line. So hopefully this year, with the better traction, I can really dial it in and actually make it past the first round. LS Fest, man, after I made it past the first round, I was like, I'm not going to an event and not making it rounds from here on out. Let's hope I'm not lying. Well, that concludes this video. If you guys want to see anything in particular, or see me try anything, or got any tips or tricks before duct tape, hit me up, let me know. You know, Instagram and Google or Gmail are always at the end of the videos. Until then, see you guys on the next one.